I came here to request a loan, but they told me, "Get out, you poor factory worker," and said things like, "A small factory like yours has no value." In front of the bank where I work, I saw a woman in work clothes standing motionless. She was drenched by the rain, trembling with her shoulders shaking, tears streaming down her face. When I spoke to her, she explained that her father's small factory was failing, and she had come to discuss a loan. However, because person in charge of her had been changed, she was bluntly turned away. With trembling fingers, I took out my phone and called someone. "Hello. It's me." The fight to save her factory began with that single phone call. At that time, I had no idea how unexpected the outcome would be. The soft spring sunlight streamed into the bank's reception room as I, Stephen, let out a sigh. Outside the window, rows of cherry trees swayed in the breeze, their pale pink petals scattering in the air. Captivated by the view, my fingers began moving unconsciously. Startled, I pressed down on my right hand to stop it. It had become a habit to start sketching designs whenever I looked at something. Faced with the loan consultation documents, I found myself once again lost in thoughts about making things. A glance at the clock told me I had only 10 minutes before my next client meeting. Panicking, I began organizing the documents. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. "Come in." The door opened, and Mr. Harris, the president of Harris Precision Industries, peeked in. His company specializes in manufacturing industrial robots and automation systems. They've developed multi-joint robotic arms for production lines, ultra-precise control systems for semiconductor manufacturing equipment, microfabrication robots for medical devices, automated sorting systems for logistics warehouses, and smart factory solutions utilizing IoT sensors. Every time he explained the advanced technology and intricate control mechanisms required for these products, I could feel my passion for manufacturing reignited. For me, the time spent meeting with Mr. Harris was a true delight, even as a banker. He seemed to know that, and he always took the time to share the intricate details of his products with me, even though such information wasn't necessary for my role. "Hey, Stephen. I arrived a bit early. Is that okay?" "Mr. Harris, welcome. Please have a seat." I stood up and bowed deeply. Mr. Harris sat down with a warm smile. "Your eyes are shining as always. Have you discovered something interesting?" "Oh, not really. No need to hide it. Your eyes always burn with passion for creating things. I can see it as clear as day." As I hesitated with my words, Mr. Harris gave me a sly grin. I felt my cheeks flush slightly. "Sorry about that. I shouldn't be distracted during work." "No, it's fine. That passion is what allows you to understand our industry so well. That's why it's such a help to have you as our contact." Mr. Harris spoke kindly. His words filled my heart with warmth. At the same time, though, I felt a pang of mixed emotions. Guessing this, Mr. Harris changed the topic. "By the way, I've got an idea for a new product. Mind giving me some advice? It's tied to financing, after all." Of course, I'd be happy to help. We spent the next 30 minutes discussing his ideas. "It's about time." Mr. Harris glanced at his watch and stood up. As I saw him off, I felt a tinge of regret but smiled warmly. As he was leaving, Mr. Harris patted me on the shoulder. "Your passion for creating things is extraordinary. It's what makes you who you are. No matter what happens, hold on to that passion. I believe that one day it will bloom into something magnificent." Leaving those words behind, Mr. Harris walked away. As I watched his back disappear, a swirl of complex emotions enveloped me. It was true that I am a banker now. But deep inside, my passion for creating things continues to burn brightly. That flame will never go out. Returning to my desk, I took a deep breath and turned my attention back to the loan documents. Outside the window, cherry blossoms floated gently on the wind. Lost in their beauty, I suddenly heard a cold voice behind me. Hey, Stephen. Daydreaming again, are you? I turned to see my older brother, Kevin, standing there. With his straight posture and perfectly tailored suit, he looked like the very face of the bank's advertisements. No, I was reviewing the documents. I stammered, scrambling to explain myself, but Kevin's brow was already furrowed with disapproval. You were probably off in some fantasy about making things again, weren't you? Grow up. You're a banker now. This isn't the time to be playing with toys like some kid. He smirked coldly, his words hitting me like a blow. His words made my chest tighten painfully. But I couldn't find the words to argue back. He wasn't wrong. While reviewing loan applications, I drifted off into thoughts of making things. And honestly, you're a failure as a banker too. Someone as introverted as you will never get ahead. You've been trusted with an important job. Yet your head's always full of nuts and bolts. Kevin, Save it. Just get those documents done. If you mess up, it'll reflect poorly on me and our father too. With those parting words, Kevin walked away. Leaving me to watch his retreating figure, I was overwhelmed by a sense of powerlessness. It was true that I'm not exceptional as a banker. I enjoy and excel far more at sketching mechanical designs than at calculating loan terms. I turned my gaze back to the window. The cherry blossoms swirled as if to console me, their gentle dance soothing my heart. As I watched the blossoms, my memories drifted back to a distant past. It was when I had just started elementary school. Stephen, why can't you be more like Kevin? My father's stern gaze bore down on me. As the president of Moore Bank, his presence felt like an imposing wall towering over my small self. I'm sorry. I mumbled, barely audible. My father let out a heavy sigh at my words. Kevin was top of his class even in elementary school and served as student council president. You need to shape up. It was a conversation I had heard countless times. My brother, Kevin, was my father's pride. He was intelligent, athletic, and charismatic. He was truly a perfect successor for the bank. And then there was me. Stephen, are you tinkering with machines again? What about your studies? Startled by my mother's voice, I quickly hid the disassembled radio. Sorry. I'll get to my studies right away. But even as I said it, my eyes were fixed on the machine parts. The screws, gears, and tiny components seemed to call out to me, and I couldn't resist being drawn in. Didn't your father tell you? You're going to be a banker, so you need to get it together. Kevin studies without being told, but you, Stephen. My mother sighed in exasperation. Yes, my future had been decided from the moment I was born. I was to be the heir to Moore Bank. But my heart had always been with machines. My brother, meanwhile, always looked at me with a cold, dismissive gaze. Stephen, what's the point of wasting time on something so trivial? One day, while I was repairing and modifying a broken clock, my brother said this to me. Without thinking, I let my true feelings slip out. But I like this. When I grow up, I want to work on creating things like this. You're an idiot. You're going to be a banker, aren't you? Forget about such a foolish dream. His words were cold. And so time passed, and I eventually ended up following the path my father had laid out for me, becoming a banker. I did it to meet my father's expectations, to somehow catch up to my brother. Yet deep in my heart, my passion for creating things continued to burn brightly. It was a few days after my meeting with Mr. Harris. The sky was blanketed with gloomy rain clouds, making for a dreary afternoon. I was hurrying back to the bank after visiting a small factory we'd lent to, drenched from the rain as I rushed through the streets. As I approached the bank, a strange sight stopped me in my tracks. Right near the entrance, there stood a lone woman. Her long black hair was soaked by the rain, and she wore what looked like a dirty work uniform. Yet, her appearance wasn't unseemly. In fact, she seemed to stand out, as though she didn't belong to the chaos of the bustling surroundings, emanating an odd sense of presence. She just stood there, motionless. Her shoulders trembled as the rain poured down on her. I couldn't help but stop in my tracks. She didn't have an umbrella, and she was just as soaked as I was. Taking a step closer, I held my umbrella over her head. "Excuse me, are you okay?" The moment I spoke, she slowly lifted her face. The intelligent light in her eyes made my heart skip a beat. Pushing her rain-soaked hair out of her face, her lips quivered slightly. Her expression was a mix of frustration, anger, and deep sorrow. "Oh, I came here to request a loan, but they told me, get out, you poor factory worker." Tears welled up in her eyes. Her words made me involuntarily catch my breath. Could it be someone from our bank? She nodded slightly. "For now, let's go inside. You'll catch a cold if you stay soaked like this." Urging her gently, I guided her into the bank. As we walked, I asked a nearby staff member to bring a towel. In the reception room, I noticed the tension visibly drain from her shoulders. Quietly, I pulled out a chair for her. The staff member I had asked earlier returned with a towel. I thanked them and handed the towel to her. She gave me a grateful smile, slowly sat down, and accepted the towel. She began drying her wet hair and body. "I realize I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Steven, and I work here. Could you please tell me more about your situation?" She nodded slightly and then began to speak, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "My name is Sarah. I came to discuss a loan for the small factory my father runs. The equipment there has become outdated, and without new machinery, we can't keep going. I want to do something for my father and for the workers." Sarah paused, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "Actually, I've been consulting with someone here about the loan since last month. The original pre-son in charge of me was very kind and understanding. They grasped the situation at the factory and said it seemed likely we'd get the loan. But when I came here today, I was told my case had been reassigned to someone named Kevin. The moment I heard that name, a chill ran down my spine. He barely even looked at our documents and said, 'There's no value in lending to such a small factory.'" Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. I clenched my fists tightly. My brother's cold voice echoed in my mind. "Our factory may be small, but I've spent years developing a unique technology. If we can bring it to life, I'm sure it will make a difference." Yet, he told me, "I'm not here to listen to fairy tales. Without funding, we won't even be able to make next month's payments. At this rate, bankruptcy is inevitable." Her words made the air in the reception room grow heavy and somber. "My father truly treasures every one of the workers. They're like family to him. That's why I can't give up. I want to protect the factory, no matter what." I looked straight into her eyes. In them, I saw a fierce determination and burning passion. It was the same flame that I had kept hidden deep within myself for so long. "Sarah, please allow me to visit your factory. Let me personally reassess everything and take full responsibility for evaluating its potential once again," I said, my expression serious and resolute. "Really? Thank you so much." Strength returned to her voice as she spoke. I nodded silently. The next day, after the rain had cleared, I visited her father's factory under her guidance. The moment I stepped inside, I was completely captivated. "This is incredible." The words escaped my lips before I could stop them. Inside the factory were machines that appeared, at first glance, to be outdated. But each one had been ingeniously modified. I focused my gaze, studying the astonishing adjustments that had been made. The first thing that caught my eye was a large lathe. Normally, such a machine would occupy half the room, but here it had been made remarkably compact. As I stared in amazement, Sarah began to explain with a proud smile. "Look here. We replaced the traditional motor in the lathe with an ultra-compact motor that I designed. It's 1.5 times more efficient than the standard one, yet it's only a third of the size. Wait, you designed this motor? I was so stunned that I couldn't help but stare directly at her face in disbelief. Come to think of it, she said yesterday, I have a technology I've been researching for years. Sarah blushed slightly and nodded. Yes. I studied mechanical engineering at university because I wanted to apply what I learned. Next, my eyes were drawn to a welding machine. Typically, such a machine requires a large transformer and cooling system, but here it was remarkably compact. This welding machine, what's been done to it? I couldn't hide my excitement as I asked. Oh, this one? I replaced the conventional transformer with a high-frequency conversion device I developed. It's 30% more energy efficient and doesn't require a cooling system anymore. As we moved further inside, I noticed a testing line. There, a small camera-like device was scanning products one after another. This testing system is amazing. This is my pride and joy. It combines an AI-powered image recognition system with an ultra-precise laser scanner I developed. It can detect tiny scratches and distortions more accurately than the human eye. In the corner of the factory, I spotted a small device moving quietly. At first glance, it was unclear what it was doing, but its intricate movements caught my attention. I couldn't believe my eyes. Is that an automated assembly machine? Exactly. I designed it with a multi-joint arm and a specialized gripping mechanism for handling small parts. This one machine can handle the work of an entire assembly line. Sarah's voice was filled with excitement. Finally, my gaze settled on a device that appeared to control the entire factory. It looked like a small tablet, displaying complex graphs and numbers. Is this controlling the entire factory? Yes. It's an integrated control system I developed. It monitors the status of every machine in real time and automatically generates the most efficient production plans. It's improved energy efficiency by 40% compared to traditional setups. I was at a loss for words. What stretched out before me was nothing short of a factory of the future. The old machinery on the surface belied the cutting-edge technology hidden within. And all of it had come from the mind of Sarah, standing right in front of me. Stephen, what do you think? Does our factory have potential? This isn't just potential. Sarah, this is revolutionary. Such incredible technology must be shared with the world. Overwhelmed by excitement, I couldn't help but take her hands in mine. Sarah blushed deeply, smiling shyly. Realizing what I'd done, I quickly let go of her hands, flustered. As the warmth of her hands lingered in mine, I found myself captivated not only by her talent but also by her humility and passion. However, the sweet moment was abruptly shattered. Sarah! Is this the banker from yesterday? A thunderous voice echoed through the factory. I turned to see a middle-aged man standing at the entrance. His face was twisted with anger as he stormed toward us. Dad! No, it's not like that. This person is. Sarah quickly released my hand, her voice frantic as she tried to explain. But her father, Thomas, as I would later learn, cut her off and stood directly in front of me, his face furious. Hey you! How dare you insult my daughter and then have the audacity to show up here? Wait, insult? I looked at Sarah, completely bewildered. Sarah gave me an apologetic look before speaking hesitantly. I'm sorry, Stephen. I told my father about what happened yesterday. But it seems he misunderstood. I heard it. Factory workers, go home because you're poor? Mocking the technology my daughter worked so hard to develop. Thomas's voice trembled. No, that's enough. I don't need anything from the bank. We'll rise up on our own. His voice carried not only anger but also deep sorrow and determination. Years of hardship were etched into every word he spoke. Dad, calm down. Stephen is different. He truly understands our technology. Silence, Sarah. You're being deceived. Banks don't really care about small businesses like ours. I couldn't hide my unease. I understood their frustration, the pain they'd endured from the cold decisions of the banking world. But still, I gathered my courage and spoke. I'm truly sorry about yesterday. But I was deeply impressed by Sarah's incredible skills. Shut up. I've had enough of this. Get out. Thomas's furious shout cut off my words. In his eyes, anger and sorrow were intertwined. I was left speechless. Stephen, I'm so sorry. Please, just leave for today. I'll talk to my father and try to convince him. Sarah's words left me with no choice but to nod and head back. On the way home, I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and called my father. Feeling a lump in my throat, I forced myself to speak. Dad, no, Mr. Moore. It's Stephen. What is it? His voice carried its usual indifference. I need to discuss the loan application for Kennedy Industries. Oh, that small business? Kevin turned it down, didn't he? His words made me bristle. But that doesn't make sense. That factory has incredible technology. Don't make a fuss over something so minor. I've entrusted Kevin with this matter. But, Dad, you're a banker. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. Respect Kevin's decision. I clenched my teeth in frustration. I couldn't back down now. Dad, this case has real potential. Please reconsider and review it again. Stephen, you're still too naive. A bank isn't a charity. We can't take on high-risk cases. But, I'll say it one more time. Follow Kevin's decision. That's your duty as a banker. The call abruptly ended. I stood there, stunned. My father's cold words echoed in my mind. At the same time, Sarah's passionate and determined expression came to the forefront of my thoughts. I exhaled deeply. I couldn't let it end like this. As a banker and also as a person, there had to be something I could do. A few days after my visit to Kennedy Industries. On a pleasant spring afternoon, Sarah and I sat on a bench in a small park near the factory. Cherry blossom petals danced on the breeze, gently falling around us. Sarah, your technology is truly remarkable. That's exactly why it needs to be protected. I spoke quietly, breaking the silence. Sarah tilted her head slightly in curiosity. Protect. Yes, I recommend applying for a patent. A patent? But wouldn't that feel like I'm keeping the technology all to myself? I couldn't help but smile. Her purity and sincerity touched me deeply. No, Sarah. A patent is to protect your technology. It ensures that big corporations can't copy or exploit it. But isn't technology meant to help everyone? I want to use this technology to help as many people as I can. Her words reminded me again of Sarah's kindness and passion. I understand. But with a patent, your technology will be properly recognized and valued. It will also allow you to decide how it's used to help others. The patent is there to protect that right. I spoke gently. Sarah fell silent, deep in thought. A cherry blossom petal landed softly on her shoulder. But applying for a patent sounds expensive and complicated. Don't worry. I'll support you with everything I've got. This is something I'm good at. Without thinking, I took Sarah's hand. Her eyes widened in surprise. Your technology has the potential to change the world. That's why it's worth protecting. And it's important to ensure it's shared with the world in the right way. I spoke with a serious expression, looking straight into her eyes. Gradually, understanding began to dawn in Sarah's gaze. Understood. If it's with you, Stephen, I'll give it a try. She nodded quietly. I let out a sigh of relief. All right, let's start putting this into action. It's hard to discuss things here, and we'll need all the relevant materials. Is there somewhere indoors we can go? In that case, come to our office. My father is out for an appointment right now, so the space is free. We went to the factory and entered a small office, where we sat facing each other. On the desk, Sarah's design schematics and documents were spread out. On the screen of the laptop I had brought, the patent office's website was displayed. Let's start with the most innovative aspect of your technology, I said, my expression serious. Sarah thought for a moment before pointing to one of the schematics. This one. It's a control system that achieves both miniaturization and energy efficiency. I looked at the blueprint and couldn't help but catch my breath. Amazing. This definitely has patent potential. From that moment, our long task began. Sarah explained the intricate details of her technology, while I translated her ideas into the technical and legal language required for the patent application. At times, we struggled with complex legal terminology or deliberated on how best to express the essence of her innovation, solving each challenge together, one step at a time. Regarding this efficient heat exchange system, it might be better to make the description more specific. You're right. How about optimization of heat transfer efficiency through multi-layered structures? Wonderful. With that, the patent examiner should find it easy to understand. After countless exchanges like this, we finally completed the first patent application. When I glanced at the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. Sarah, it's getting late. Shall we call it a day? No, let's keep going a bit longer. Next, let's tackle the improved welding machine technology. Sarah's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Motivated by her passion, we continued working. As the night deepened, exhaustion began to show, but Sarah's determination never waned. By the time the soft morning light started to filter through, we had finally completed the last application. Though we were both visibly tired, our faces were filled with a sense of accomplishment and joy. We did it, Sarah. Yes, thanks to you, Stephen. I spoke with a quiet but genuine smile. Sarah also gave a tired smile. A few days after finishing the patent application work with Sarah, I found myself in the bank's conference room, nervously spreading out my materials. There were only 10 minutes left until the loan approval meeting. Everything hinged on this meeting on whether or not Sarah's factory would secure the loan. I took a deep breath and reviewed the materials one last time. Financial statements, the business plan, and copies of the patent applications. I had prepared everything meticulously. I needed to find a way to convey the brilliance of Sarah's technology in numerical terms. When the meeting began, I stood up and began my presentation. Kennedy Industries is indeed facing tough financial challenges at present. However, the technology they possess has the potential to revolutionize the industry. I spoke calmly but with conviction. The reviewers' eyes focused on me. Among them, I could feel my brother's cold gaze. Specifically, this patented technology. It can increase production efficiency by 1.5 times while reducing energy consumption by 30%. I projected the schematics onto the screen. A murmur spread through the room. Furthermore, this technology opens doors to collaborations with major manufacturers. In fact, Harris Precision Industries has already expressed interest. But how reliable is this technology? A veteran reviewer asked sharply. I distributed the prepared materials. Here is an independent evaluation report. It objectively confirms the groundbreaking nature of their technology. The Q&A session continued. I fought hard, answering each question thoroughly and carefully. Sweat poured down my face like a waterfall, but I refused to give up. Finally, this loan isn't just about supporting one company. It's an investment in revitalizing the local economy and, ultimately, the future of Japanese manufacturing. I infused my voice with as much power as I could muster. The room fell silent. The reviewers exchanged whispers among themselves. "Let's approve the loan." With a single word from the chairman, all the tension within me melted away. As I stepped out of the conference room, my brother was waiting for me. "Well done, Stephen." I didn't think it would actually get approved. There was a trace of sarcasm in his voice. But I responded sincerely. "Thank you, Kevin. Still, if this fails, you'll be the one to bear the responsibility." "You're prepared for that, aren't you?" "Of course. I'll make sure it succeeds." I looked straight into my brother's eyes. He started to say something but ultimately left without another word. I let out a deep breath. Now, I could save Sarah's factory. The thought filled me with a sense of relief and hope. At the same time, my brother's words echoed in my mind. Failure is not an option. I have to make this work. A year and a half later, I found myself once again walking through the gates of Kennedy Industries. But the sight before me was completely different from what I remembered. What had once been an aging factory was now a modern facility boasting state-of-the-art equipment. The parking lot was packed with employees' cars, and vibrant sounds of activity spilled from the factory. At the reception desk, a young employee greeted me with a smile. "Stephen, we've been expecting you. The Executive Vice President, Sarah, is waiting for you." Executive Vice President. Hearing that title, I couldn't help but smile. I recalled hearing that Sarah had taken the position just last month. As I walked through the factory, guided by the employee, I felt as though I were stepping into the future of manufacturing. Sarah's innovations in energy-saving and space-efficient technology were evident everywhere, with streamlined and efficient production lines stretching before me. And at the center of it all, directing the employees, was Sarah. "Stephen." Noticing me, Sarah approached with a beaming smile. Her smile was the same as it had been a year and a half ago, but now it carried a confidence that shone brightly. "Look at our new factory. All the patents you helped us with were approved. Thanks to that, we've been flooded with orders from major manufacturers. And now we're running at full capacity every day. Congratulations. This is truly amazing," I said, offering my heartfelt congratulations. Sarah nodded happily. As she gave me a tour of the factory, I found myself repeatedly amazed. What had once been old machinery was now cutting-edge equipment. The workforce had more than tripled, and everyone seemed energized and engaged. "This is our new R&D department. We're working on developing the next wave of innovative technologies." Sarah opened a door to a room. Inside, young engineers were engaged in animated discussions. The walls were lined with complex schematics, and a 3D printer was creating new components. "This is incredible." The words escaped my lips. Sarah proudly continued her explanation. "We're building on the approved patents to develop even more advanced technology. If this becomes practical, I believe it could revolutionize the manufacturing industry." Her words filled my chest with warmth. The woman I had met on that rainy day in front of the bank was now standing at the forefront of the industry. This is truly an outstanding achievement. I never imagined Sarah's talent could bring about such tremendous change. "No, it's all thanks to you, Stephen. You taught me the importance of patents, helped with the loan applications." Sarah smiled shyly, a hint of embarrassment showing on her face. At that moment, the office door opened, and Thomas stepped in. His posture was straighter, and there seemed to be a newfound confidence in his gaze. However, the moment he saw me, his expression softened. "Stephen, may I have a moment?" Thomas called out to me. There wasn't a trace of the anger or distrust that had once colored his voice. "Thomas, it's been a while." "Of course," I replied politely, bowing slightly. Thomas guided me to the reception room, where we both took a seat on the sofa. He hesitated for a moment, then deeply bowed his head. "Stephen, I truly owe you an apology for that time. His words left me momentarily stunned. Thomas raised his head and looked at me with an earnest expression. "It's all thanks to you. Our factory is thriving now, and Sarah has been able to show her talents. I can't thank you enough. Back then, I doubted you and said such terrible things. Yet you." His voice faltered, and he fell silent. Sarah gently patted her father's back. Hearing his heartfelt words, I felt a surge of emotion well up inside me. After a brief pause, Thomas spoke again. "Stephen, I actually have a favor to ask." "Of course." "What is it?" "I'd like to request an additional loan for new equipment and research and development." Once again, Thomas bowed his head. I couldn't hide my surprise. For someone who had harbored such distrust toward bankers to now bow his head and request a loan, it was unthinkable. Our technology still has so much potential. It can contribute even more to the world. For that, we need. I understand. Please share the details of your plan with me. I nodded deeply. At that moment, Thomas's face brightened. Sarah, too, smiled happily. The three of us sat around the table in the office, discussing plans for the future. Outside the window, the vibrant sounds of the factory echoed. It felt like the overture to a new challenge. Months after the additional loan to Kennedy Industries, the atmosphere around me at work began to shift. Until then, the senior colleagues who had barely paid attention to me suddenly began striking up conversations. "Stephen, the Kennedy Industries case is impressive. Getting an additional loan of that size approved? Well done." Each time I heard these words, I felt a mix of pride and unease. One day, I was called into the office of my manager, Terrence. Nervously entering, I saw graphs and numerical data spread out across his desk. "I've been looking over your performance, and these numbers are incredible. Just this term, your results have increased by 300% compared to last year. And every single loan is being repaid smoothly." Terrence adjusted his glasses and looked at me intently. He showed me the documents, and I caught my breath. Starting with the loan to Kennedy Industries, the amount I had facilitated for small and medium-sized businesses had skyrocketed. Most of the loans were for technological development and business expansion. Even I could hardly believe it. You're the top performer in the sales department, Stephen. In just 6 months, you've become the leading loan officer at this branch." Terrence spoke calmly. For a moment, my mind went blank. The top performer? Me? Your success isn't just about the numbers being large. The companies you've financed are growing, and they're positively impacting the local economy. This is the true purpose of our work as bankers. Those words stirred something warm in my chest. As I left the manager's office, I saw a crowd of colleagues gathered in the hallway. It seemed my achievements had spread throughout the bank. "Congratulations, Stephen. Well done." Amid the cheers and applause, I bowed my head, feeling a bit embarrassed. At that moment, I noticed my brother standing beyond the crowd. My brother stared at me with cold eyes, his lips pressed into a tight line. His expression was filled with unmistakable disdain. As the room fell silent, he slowly began walking toward me. "Well done, Stephen. Looks like you got lucky." My brother's voice was laced with sarcasm. "Did you butter up our father? I can't believe someone like you is being praised. But don't get carried away. This so-called success is nothing more than a fluke. Risky loans like that will backfire someday. Kevin, this wasn't luck or coincidence. It's the result of our clients' hard work and believing in their potential." "Ha, don't spout pretty words. You've been incompetent from the start. Just make sure you don't ruin the bank's reputation with your inevitable failure." He clicked his tongue and walked away. As I watched his retreating figure, a new determination began to take root in my heart. I vowed not to let his words deter me. Instead, I would become the kind of banker who could support even more people's dreams. One morning, as I arrived at work, the atmosphere in the bank felt different. The way my colleagues looked at me seemed odd. Then, a call came summoning me to the manager's office. Entering the room, I saw Terence with a grave expression, and beside him was my brother, wearing a smug, thin smile. Terence spoke heavily. "Stephen, a significant issue has been uncovered in your loan cases." "What?" "Look at this." My brother handed me a document, his cold gaze fixed on me. With trembling hands, I took the papers. As I read, I felt the blood drain from my face. The document outlined allegations of financial misconduct in several companies I had approved loans for, including Kennedy Industries. The accusations suggested not only that I had overlooked the discrepancies but that I might have been complicit in them. With trembling hands, I spread out the documents and began reading the details of the fraud. One shocking revelation after another came to light. First, major alterations had been discovered in Kennedy Industries' financial statements. Revenue had been inflated by over 30%, and liabilities had been underreported. This manipulation allowed the company to barely meet the loan approval criteria. Additionally, fictitious orders had been recorded to falsify financial statements, enabling the company to secure a large equipment investment loan despite having a financial condition that did not meet the loan criteria, with non-existent inventory used as collateral. These fraudulent activities were executed at a level so sophisticated that they would have been nearly impossible to detect through standard reviews. However, this wasn't the extent of the problem. The most damning evidence was a whistleblower memo reportedly delivered to my desk months ago. The memo indeed bore my signature, along with a clearly marked date. This meant it appeared as though I had been aware of the fraud and had chosen to turn a blind eye to it. Even more incriminating, the final loan approval documents also carried my signature. Typically, loans of this magnitude required a supervisor's approval, yet the record showed it had been authorized solely under my name. This is absurd. I clutched my head in disbelief. The signatures were undeniably mine. But I would never have carelessly signed off on such critical documents. And as for the whistleblower memo, I had no memory of ever seeing it. The evidence was undeniable. It painted a picture of me overlooking falsified financial statements, ignoring warnings, and unilaterally approving the loans. Every piece of evidence pointed directly at me, making it seem as though I had been complicit in the fraud. As cold sweat trickled down my back, the gravity of the situation struck me. This wasn't just a loan approval mistake. It was a clear case of fraudulent lending through collusion. If exposed, it wouldn't just mean dismissal, but I could face criminal charges. This has to be a mistake. I would never. Enough. Stephen, you are hereby suspended from your duties until the investigation is complete. Do not come to the bank in the meantime. Terence interrupted sharply. At that moment, it felt like my world had gone dark. As I walked through the bank, cold stares pierced me from every direction. The rumors had clearly spread. Looking out the window, I noticed rain starting to fall. As if reflecting my own feelings, the sky was filled with dull, gray clouds. 4 days later, on a quiet morning, while I was at home, my phone suddenly rang. It was Terence. "Stephen, report to headquarters immediately." His tone was ice cold. Dragging my heavy feet, I made my way to the headquarters. When I entered the conference room, I was met with the stern faces of the executives and the smug, triumphant expression of my brother. "Stephen, it has been decided that you are dismissed." Those words made the world seem to stop. The loan case with Harris Precision Industries will be handed over to Kevin. The client has already been informed. Ensure that you transfer all materials to him by the end of today. Understood. As I hung my head and gave my response, my brother approached me. "You've done well so far. Leave the rest to me," he said coolly. His words stirred a wave of anger and frustration within me. But even more overwhelming was the deep sense of despair that enveloped me. Suddenly, the conference room door burst open. Emergency! A call from Mr. Harris from Harris Precision Industries. He says it's urgent. The secretary hurried in, visibly flustered. Terrence, confused, picked up the receiver. The tension in the room became palpable. Yes, this is Terrence speaking. What? You can't be serious. He glanced at me, his face pale. Mr. Harris has said he will not proceed with the loan unless Stephen remains the person in charge of him. Terrence's voice trembled as he spoke. The room erupted into murmurs. What? Why? That's unacceptable. My brother's face turned pale in an instant. A level of agitation I had never seen before appeared on his expression. Terrence, looking perplexed, placed the receiver back to his ear. After listening for a while, his expression shifted to one of astonishment. Understood. Terrence then switched the phone to speaker mode. The composed voice of Mr. Harris resonated throughout the room. This is Harris, the president of Harris Precision Industries. I have something important to say to your bank concerning Stephen. The tension in the room became palpable. I noticed Kevin leaning forward, his body taut with anticipation. Stephen holds the patent that forms the core of our company's flagship product. Specifically, it's for our Neo Precision Controller series. The air in the room grew tense. Everyone held their breath, listening intently. Mr. Harris continued. Stephen's patented technology is called the Adaptive Microvibration Suppression System. Traditional precision control systems were vulnerable to external microvibrations and temperature fluctuations, making it difficult to maintain nano-level accuracy. However, Stephen's innovation has brilliantly solved this issue. Mr. Harris's voice carried a note of excitement. The innovation in this technology lies in the combination of intricate sensor networks and groundbreaking algorithms. The sensors detect minute changes in the environment and analyze the data in real time. Furthermore, it can instantly apply precise corrections, even in response to unpredictable disturbances. It's like giving machines the ability to adapt, isn't it? Terrence let out a voice of admiration. Exactly. Furthermore, this technology has drastically improved energy efficiency by achieving precise control with minimal force. It reduced power consumption by 40% compared to conventional systems. Thanks to this innovation, the Neo Precision Controller became the core of industrial robots and automated manufacturing lines. It revolutionized fields requiring ultra-high precision, such as semiconductor production, precision machinery assembly, and even medical device manufacturing. Today, this controller accounts for over 30% of our company's revenue, making it our flagship product. Stephen's idea has significantly contributed to enhancing the global competitiveness of Japan's manufacturing industry. I could see my brother's face growing paler by the second. Terrence, on the other hand, was looking at me with an expression of admiration. This technology is expected to have broader applications in fields such as space exploration and next-generation robotics. Stephen's vision has laid the foundation for future technological innovation. He came up with this incredible concept during his internship at our company. The moment I heard his idea, I knew this was going to be something extraordinary. The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. I immediately proposed to Stephen that he file a patent. But he looked troubled and said he had to work at the bank his father ran. Honestly, I was disappointed. Losing such a talented young man was a significant loss for our company. But Stephen's resolve was firm. Mr. Harris's voice carried a tinge of regret from that time. However, his tone quickly regained its vigor. So I proposed buying the patent outright. Alternatively, I offered to pay royalties for the right to use the technology. Terrence looked at me with a stunned expression. My brother's face grew increasingly conflicted. In the end, Stephen agreed to a joint patent filing. The patent was issued under his name, and our company secured exclusive usage rights in exchange for paying royalties. I had no idea he had such a background. Truly surprising. Terence nodded deeply in agreement. Mr. Harris continued with conviction. Our company's success would not have been possible without him. Someone like Stephen would never engage in fraud. There must be more to this. Until the truth is uncovered, we will not accept any further loans from your bank. That is all. I trust you will make a prudent decision. With that, Mr. Harris ended the call. A heavy silence filled the room. Suddenly, my brother stood up. His eyes were filled with swirling hatred and jealousy. Ridiculous. There's no way you hold a patent. Someone as useless as you couldn't possibly have something so significant. My brother shouted in a fierce voice. He glared at me with a provocative stare. His eyes were filled with contempt. I took a deep breath. There was no longer any reason to hide the truth. In a calm yet resolute voice, I responded. I do hold the patent, and I've been receiving royalties for it, but to avoid being discovered by our father and you, who despised my passion for creating things, I deposited the royalties into an account at a different bank. What? You've been doing this behind our backs? You coward! Traitor! My brother's face turned bright red with anger. Suddenly, Terence cleared his throat, commanding the room's attention. Calm down, Kevin. We will thoroughly reinvestigate all the allegations against Stephen. What? But? My brother's face went pale. What's the matter, Kevin? Nothing. I just don't think that's necessary. You heard Mr. Harris, didn't you? Unless we conduct a reinvestigation, we cannot proceed with any loans for Harris Precision Industries. They are one of our bank's largest clients. Losing them would result in significant losses. Terence's tone was firm and unwavering. My brother was left speechless, shifting uncomfortably in his chair, his composure visibly crumbling. A thin layer of sweat glistened on his brow. Stephen, I'm afraid the doubts about you haven't been completely cleared yet. Please remain on standby at home until the investigation is complete. Understood. I nodded. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of light breaking through the darkness. After leaving the meeting room, I sought a quiet place and took my phone from my pocket. Taking a deep breath, I called Mr. Harris. Hello? Mr. Harris, this is Stephen. I want to thank you sincerely for what you did earlier. No need for thanks. I simply did what was right. No, it's because of your support that. Mr. Harris gently interrupted me. Stephen, I acted because of your strength. My strength? Yes. The technology you developed, your financial analysis skills honed at the bank, and your integrity. Your presence is invaluable to our company. It's because of who you are that I didn't hesitate to help. His words filled my chest with warmth. Thank you so much, Mr. Harris. I expressed my gratitude and let out a deep breath. His words seemed to dispel the lingering doubts and fears within me. But his next question caught me off guard. Stephen, do you intend to continue as a banker? You're uncertain, I see. It's understandable. You were raised with the expectation of becoming a banker. Breaking free from that isn't easy. And let me be clear, you are an excellent banker. On the other end of the line, I could hear Mr. Harris's gentle laughter. I stayed silent, listening to his words. Follow your heart, Stephen. Whether you continue as a banker or pursue a new path, what matters most is that you chase what you truly want to do. Whatever path you choose, I promise to support you fully. If you ever need advice, don't hesitate to reach out. Mr. Harris's voice was warm and reassuring. His words brought a quiet sense of release within me. Thank you. I will deeply cherish your words, Mr. Harris. I'm looking forward to your future. Mr. Harris's voice carried a sense of genuine care. After ending the call, I gazed out the window for a long time. The view before me seemed filled with endless possibilities. A few days later, Terrence called me back to the office. Shocking revelations awaited me. To put it simply, everything had been orchestrated by my brother. The first piece of evidence presented was a document bearing my forged signature. At first glance, it appeared genuine, but handwriting analysis revealed it to be fake. Further investigations uncovered that the altered financial statements from Kennedy Industries, the fabricated orders, and the inflated inventory had all been executed by my brother through unauthorized access to the internal systems. He had even created the false whistleblower email to incriminate me. Using his connections with the IT department, he bypassed security measures and carried out his malicious plan with cunning precision. The investigation also revealed this wasn't his first offense. He had demanded personal kickbacks on loans to small and medium-sized businesses, leaked confidential information about major clients to an acquaintance in a securities firm for insider trading, and even created fake customers to pocket loan proceeds. As these truths came to light, the bank's reputation wavered, and we spent days repairing relationships with our partners. My brother was placed on suspension pending a formal decision. Meanwhile, I was reinstated at work. I felt anger at my brother's actions but also a deep sadness. How had it come to this? What darkness had taken root in him? A week later, my brother received his termination notice. I was tasked with organizing my brother's desk. With a heavy heart, I opened the drawers and discovered a small notebook hidden in the back. Its cover was plain, unmarked, just an ordinary notebook. But when I opened it, I found its pages filled with my brother's untidy handwriting, every line densely packed with words. Father scolded me again today. No matter how hard I try, I can never meet his expectations. The only way to escape this pressure is to deliver results, even if I have to cross some lines. Each word tightened the grip on my chest. The pain, the anxiety, the despair. They poured out vividly from the pages. As I turned each page, I saw the darkness in my brother's heart deepen. It began with small acts of misconduct, escalating step by step, detailed in raw honesty. I committed another fraud today. But now my father will have to acknowledge me. Why is Stephen being praised? He only does what he loves. There's no turning back now. I have to keep pushing forward. On the last page, the handwriting was shaky, as though written by a trembling hand. I'm so tired. I just want to be free from everything. When I closed the notebook, I felt tears streaming down my cheeks. The anger I once held was gone, replaced by profound sadness and sympathy. My brother had been crushed under the weight of the pressure, losing himself in the process. The expectations of our father, the demands of being a banker, and constant comparisons to me. These had cornered him, driving him to irreversible actions. Kevin, I whispered softly. At that moment, my father's voice called out. Stephen, I need to talk to you. His tone held a gentleness I had never heard before. Confused, I made my way to his office. When I entered, he greeted me with an unusually calm expression. Sit down. I have something important to discuss about you. I quietly sat down in the chair. There was something unsettling about the change in my father's demeanor. Your work has been outstanding. Unlike Kevin, you've done nothing to bring disgrace upon us. Having such a son is truly a relief. I can't bear the shame Kevin has brought upon us. But you're different. From now on, I will groom you as the successor to this bank. I know you can take this bank to greater heights, restore the reputation of Moore Bank, and wipe away Kevin's stain on our name. I have faith in you. As my father spoke, I felt a tightness in my chest. Sympathy for my brother and disgust at my father's coldness. And a growing fear of living within these values. In that moment, my brother's diary entries came vividly to mind. The only way to escape this pressure is to deliver results. There's no turning back now. And finally, the despairing words, "I'm so tired. I just want to be free from everything." I realized in that moment that I was on the verge of walking the same path as my brother. The more I tried to meet my father's expectations, the heavier the weight would become, eventually crushing me and leaving me lost. I could see that future all too clearly. At the same time, the passion for creation that had been quietly smoldering in my heart suddenly ignited into a roaring flame. I exhaled deeply. Staying at the bank would certainly promise a stable life. But was that truly the life I wanted? My father's words, my brother's struggles, and my own dreams clashed in my mind. And in that moment, something decisive shifted within me. If I stayed, I would end up like my brother. No, worse than that, I would be betraying myself. Resolving to take a stand, I spoke quietly but with firm determination. "Dad, I'm sorry, but I've decided to leave the bank. I want to use the experiences I've gained to enter the world of creation and manufacturing." "What did you say?" Anger began to rise on my father's face. "Ridiculous. Just as I was about to offer you a golden opportunity, what nonsense are you spouting? The son of a bank president going into manufacturing? What about our family's reputation? Are you planning to tarnish our name even further? With everything that's already happened with Kevin, we've been the talk of the town. And now they'll say there's another eccentric son in this family? Dad, isn't it because of your so-called reputation that my brother ended up like this?" In that moment, I saw my father's expression falter for a brief second. When I was organizing my brother's desk, I happened to find something like a journal. It was filled with his struggles and pain. He pushed himself too hard trying to meet your expectations, Father, and it drove him to the edge. It started with small acts of wrongdoing. But it escalated. Yet, those weren't things he truly wanted to do. He was just cornered with no way out. I looked at my father with a determined gaze. What my brother did was wrong. But unless we understand what drove him to that point, we'll only repeat the same mistakes. That's the responsibility of all of us as a family. That's why I want to forge my own path and show a new way of thinking. I believe that's the first step to truly changing our family and even the bank. My father remained silent for a long time, then let out a deep sigh. "You may be right. I've spent my life focusing solely on the bank and our family name, obsessed with appearances, and in the process, I've lost sight of what truly matters. I've neglected how you both felt." My father turned to face me. I thought I saw a faint glimmer of tears in his eyes. "It's my fault that I drove Kevin to the brink. I placed far too much pressure and expectations on him and on you as well. I'm sorry, Stephen." My father bowed his head deeply. I was at a loss for words. It was the first time I'd seen him so sincere and vulnerable. He slowly approached me and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Stephen, I will respect your decision. If you choose the path of creation and manufacturing, that is a noble way to live. In fact, I'm proud of you for staying true to your beliefs." His words brought tears to my eyes. "Dad, those words. I've wanted to hear them for so long. I've always wanted to be acknowledged by you." My father smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry." There was a softness in his expression that I hadn't seen in years. A few months passed. I heard that my father faced intense scrutiny during the bank's board meeting. He was held accountable for the damage to the bank's reputation caused by my brother's actions, leading to his resignation as president. Furthermore, his standing within the banking industry plummeted. The network of connections and trust he had built over decades crumbled overnight. The public's gaze was equally unforgiving. When I saw headlines like "The Fall of the Banking King" splashed across newspapers and online news, it struck a painful chord in my heart. However, even in that darkness, a small light began to emerge. One day, I received an email from my father. In it, he wrote about how he had started participating in volunteer activities to support local small businesses. When my father said, "For the first time in my life, I'm truly learning the value of money," I couldn't help but widen my eyes in surprise. My brother, like my father, began to show signs of change. One night, when I came home late, I noticed light spilling out from the living room. There he was, sitting alone, an unusual sight. "Stephen, can we talk for a moment?" His voice carried a frailty I had never heard before. Slightly hesitant, I sat down across from him. "Stephen, I'm truly sorry for trying to bring you down, for betraying the bank's trust, and for causing our family so much pain. I regret it all. I buckled under the pressure and lost myself. But that doesn't excuse what I did. I was utterly foolish." I stayed silent, listening to his words. In this room, filled with memories of our childhood together, hearing his apology felt surreal. "Starting tomorrow, I'll be working at an NPO. They focus on providing financial education and debt counseling to people facing economic hardship. I want to use my mistakes to help others avoid the same pitfalls. It's the only way I know how to atone." There was a humility and resolve in his voice that I had never sensed before. "Stephen, I won't ask for your forgiveness. But from now on, I intend to live honestly and sincerely. And, if it's possible, I'd like to rebuild our relationship as brothers." I took a deep breath. Instead of anger, I felt a sense of relief at his words. Perhaps this could be the beginning of a new relationship within our family. With that thought in mind, I quietly nodded. The changes in my father and brother filled my heart with warmth. Indeed, the glory of the past had been lost. But in its place, each member of my family seemed to be discovering genuine values and a sense of purpose. After leaving the bank, I joined Sarah's factory. The first day I stepped into the factory as an employee felt like walking into a dream. The view was completely different from when I had visited as part of the loan evaluation process. "Welcome, Stephen." Sarah greeted me with a beaming smile as my eyes lit up with excitement. The first few weeks were honestly full of confusion. The environment, terminology, and workflow were completely different from the bank. But everything felt fresh, and my heart was filled with a sense of excitement. What stood out the most was the process of seeing my ideas take shape. At the bank, everything existed only in numbers and documents. Here, it became tangible right in front of me. That joy was incomparable to anything else. Sarah valued my experience at the bank and entrusted me with a role bridging finance and technological development. The knowledge I had gained in banking and my passion for creation, I was able to utilize both in a job that gave me purpose every single day. Of course, not everything was smooth sailing. There were days when I painfully realized my lack of technical knowledge, and moments when my habits from the bank led to mistakes. But even those moments felt like valuable lessons. Amid all this, I immersed myself in developing a new system I named the Financial Manufacturing Optimizer, or FMO for short. This system is a groundbreaking innovation that integrates manufacturing processes with financial analysis, unlike anything seen in the industry. The core of FMO lies in synchronizing real-time financial data with production line operations. For example, fluctuations in raw material prices or exchange rates are instantly reflected in production planning, automatically calculating the optimal timing and quantity for manufacturing. Additionally, it leverages AI technology to forecast market trends and propose optimized inventory management and capital investments. This enables businesses to maintain the most efficient and profitable production systems at all times. Drawing from the risk analysis knowledge I gained during my banking career, the system assigns risk scores to each manufacturing process. It includes features to minimize the impact of unforeseen events. The standout feature of this system is its user-friendly interface. It provides complex financial data and production information in intuitive visual formats. This allows everyone, from executives to shop floor workers, to easily share information and make quick decisions. I remember the day I brought this blueprint to Harris Precision Engineering. Stephen, this is extraordinary. A revolutionary system that breaks down the barriers between manufacturing and finance. With real-time cost calculations and production optimization functions like these, we can dramatically improve our decision-making speed and accuracy. And this risk management feature, it's like financial engineering tailored specifically for the manufacturing sector. Mr. Harris said, his eyes fixed on the FMO interface with intense focus. His words filled me with pride and excitement. Stephen, how about signing a partnership agreement with us? We want to be the first to implement this system, and together, we can roll it out to other manufacturers as well. Without hesitation, I nodded in agreement. And so, my factory became a key partner to Harris Precision Engineering. FMO quickly gained industry attention, drawing interest from major manufacturers. While immersing myself in technological development, I simultaneously worked on expanding the business. In the process, I experienced a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment every day that I had never felt during my banking years. One afternoon, Sarah and I were engrossed in discussing a new product design. This part could be made a bit more efficient. You're right. Combining your financial expertise with my technical skills, we could create even more innovative products. When I pointed it out, Sarah's eyes lit up. Just then, Thomas entered the workshop. Well, you two seem quite passionate. Stephen, can I have a moment? Thomas said with a gentle smile. Though a bit surprised, I followed him. Actually, I think it's time to start discussing marriage. What? I was so shocked by his sudden suggestion that I couldn't close my mouth. Come on, everyone here knows how close you two are. Even the factory staff recognize it. Besides, I'm getting old. So I'd love to see a grandchild. His words left me completely flustered. It was clear he had misunderstood my relationship with Sarah, assuming we were a couple. Thomas, actually, Sarah and I aren't. Well, we're not dating yet. I truly care about her, but we're not at that stage. What? Is that so? I was sure. Thomas looked surprised. He stared at my face for a moment, then smiled faintly, though with a hint of disappointment. I see, it seems I misunderstood. My apologies. But still, I'm counting on you to take care of Sarah. Make her happy, that's my wish as her father. Yes, I promise. Those words made me fully realize the weight of my feelings. My feelings for Sarah. They had become something irreplaceable to me. When I returned to the workshop, Sarah was looking at me with a puzzled expression. Did something happen? Her clear eyes met mine, and I took a deep breath. Now was the time to be honest about my feelings. Sarah, I need to talk to you. Could you spare some time after work? I spoke calmly but with determination. Sarah tilted her head slightly but nodded in agreement. After work, I invited her to a park near the bank. The soft glow of the evening light enveloped us as we walked. Sitting down on a bench, I took a deep breath and looked straight into Sarah's eyes. She gazed back at me with a curious expression. Sarah, do you remember the day I told you to apply for a patent here? Of course. That day changed my life. It changed mine too. Since then, working with you and chasing our dreams together, I've realized something. I love you, Sarah. Your passion, your sincerity, and your kindness, they've completely captivated me. The words flowed naturally from my lips. I could see Sarah's cheeks flush red. Bathed in the light of the setting sun, she looked even more beautiful. Stephen, I feel the same way. I've been drawn to your honesty and your passion for creating things. But I always thought you only saw me as a work partner, so I kept my feelings to myself. I instinctively took her hands in mine. That's not true. Of course, you're an important partner at work, but more than that, you mean so much to me. As if to interrupt my words, Sarah pressed her lips against mine. She looked at me, who was dumbfounded, and gave a mischievous smile. The sight of her filled me with overwhelming affection. Following my heart, I embraced her tightly. She wrapped her arms firmly around my back. "Thank you, Stephen. From now on, please continue to stay by my side." As she whispered those words, tears seemed to glisten in her eyes. I nodded firmly. The choice between being a banker or pursuing a path in manufacturing. The decision was not merely about choosing a profession. It was a question of whom I was truly living my life for. Fulfilling others' expectations is important. But more than that, living honestly according to one's own heart is paramount. Having the courage to stay true to oneself. That, I learned, is the true way to bring happiness to those around you. That courage can sometimes create friction with others. But if you persist with sincerity on the path you believe in, there will always be people who understand. My encounters with Sarah and Mr. Harris taught me that. Ultimately, I am certain that living authentically is the greatest contribution one can make to family and society.